Okay, for this session, this will be our objectives. First, to trace the physical development that you have gone through as infants and toddlers. Okay, trace own cognitive development as infants and toddlers. Third is to describe the social-emotional development processes from infant and toddler. So when we focus on infant and toddler, the aspects which we are going to venture on this session will be the three. First is the physical development. Second is cognitive development. And last will be the social-emotional development. So these three aspects will be lectured today in our session. And hopefully at the end of the session, we'll be able to reach, okay, or to realize the last objective, which is to draw implications of the above mentioned topics in relation to parenting, child care, and pedagogy. Meron na mga nursery school ngayon na tumatanggap ng toddlers, no? For some schools, may nakakita na ako early as 1 year old to 3 years old. Okay, meron ng mga schools for them. Okay, though it's mostly about play, but still, may pattern na sinusunod dyan. There is a curriculum that they follow. So this will be our session outline. To realize those objectives, we are going to discuss the physical development of infants and toddlers. Second, the cognitive development of infants and toddlers. And lastly, the social-emotional development of infants and toddlers. And these are the references I used. Okay. Now, let's begin with physical development of infants and toddlers. Let's have the initial task. After this slide, I'll be showing a picture and I would like you to observe, okay, the picture. Okay, focus on the size of the head and other body parts in the picture, on the subjects in the picture. And then I try to answer this question. Does physical development begin from bottom to top to bottom, center to side, or side to center? I repeat, focus on this question while you are analyzing the picture later. Does physical development begin from bottom to top to bottom, center to side, or side to center? Okay, ready? So this is the image. It shows the physical development of human, okay, from 2 months old up to 25 years old. Let's focus on toddler from 2 months to the newborn, moving to 25 years old. What do you notice about the head? Let's focus on the head. What do you notice about the head? Yung ulo. Physically, what do you notice? What do you observe? Mula dun sa 2 months, moving toward the 25-year-old human, napapansin nyo, mas malaki yung ulo, and then, habang tumatanda, aning mas lumalaki naman as we grow old?
Yung
body po.
Okay, the other
Katawan.
parts of the body, nasa ilalim, no? So meaning to say, if you're going to describe the physical development of humans, it's from top to bottom. Okay? Ito yung unang malaki, and then as we grow old, okay, lumalaki naman yung ating mga limbs and then the other parts of the body. Pero very dominant during infancy and toddlerhood, yung ulo ang malaki. Based on this picture. Okay? Especially the newborn, yung ulo ang malaki. Okay. Now, is it from top to bottom to top? From top to bottom, we would say it's from the head moving downward, right? That's from top to bottom. What about yung from side to center or center to the sides? What do we mean by that? What's that concept? Anong kinalaman nung center to side or side to center dito? So what is true about the head and the body parts? It's from top to bottom. That's correct. Okay, hindi siya bottom to top. Okay, because development begins in the head. Yun yung unang pinaka-dominant. And then as we grow old, I repeat, bumababa, going to bottom, yun yung lumalaki. What about yung concept, yung isang tanong, okay, a follow-up question, center to side, is the development from center to side or side to center?
Center to side po, sir.
Okay, what development exists if we talk about center to side?
Yung pong sir, yung pong hips, po siya. Parang hugis po siya, sir.
Okay, it's from the inside. And aside from the hips, no, na lumalapad, no, talk about the internal organs. Okay, the internal organs, ano bang unang nag-improve or nade-develop? Is it the inside or the outside?
Inside.
Okay, it's from the inside, di ba? When we are still in the womb, okay? Una muna ma-form yung mga organs na meron tayo, and then, okay, gradually, it will become physically external. Okay, development of fetus, okay, grows from the inside of the body moving outward. So if we are going to summarize this picture into this one, we will have the concept about cephalocaudal versus proximodistal patterns. What do we mean by cephalocaudal? Cephalocaudal, di ba? Cephalus. Pag sinabing cephalus, ano bahagi ng katawan na pinag-uusapan?
Sa ulo, sir.
Okay, it's the head. So the head grows more than the body. But when we say cephalocaudal, I repeat, it means the head grows more than the body. Okay, what about this one? Ito rin. The upper limbs before the lower limbs. This is from the top to bottom perspective. Pansinin nyo yung kamay tsaka paa. Okay? Ng bata, ng bagong panganak. Mas develop yung kamay, yung upper limbs nila. Okay, kamay. Yung kamay, kumpara dun sa paa. Up to such point na pag tumatanda ka, ano mapapansin mo? Okay, let's look at this picture again. Pag tumatanda ka, mas mahaba yung mga lower limbs compared to the upper limbs. But during infancy, okay, and toddler, mas dominant or evident ang upper limbs. Ito ang upper limbs.
Yes.
Ito ang upper limbs compared to the lower limbs na payat, okay, hindi ganoong kahaba. Okay? So, yun yung sinasabi nating cephalocaudal. It's from top to bottom. Okay, going back. Fetus grows from the inside of the body outwards. That's what we call the proximodistal pattern. I repeat, the proximodistal pattern. The fetus grows from the inside of the body outwards. Okay, for instance, when we talk about prenatal development, you have learned na unang nade-develop is the heart, di ba? And then the spine. Kung napanood niyo yung video, hopefully napanood niyo, no? And the spine, and then following all the body organs and the physical attributes. Bago ma-develop yung mukha o kung ano man yung meron tayo external physically, it starts within. Okay, the organs develop first. So that's what we mean by proximodistal. Another for proximodistal pattern, development of motor skills from center of the body outward. From the center of the body outward. What do we mean by that? In terms of movement, ano bang unang gumagalaw? Okay? Sa mga infant. Anong unang kaya nilang pagalawin? In terms of motor skill.
Kamay po, sir.
Kamay po.
Bago yung kamay, hindi mo ba nagagalaw nila yung braso nila? Paa ba agad?
sir.
Development of motor skills from center of the body outward. Like it will start in the arms, okay? Yung sa mga muscles mo na, sa arms, moving to the hands and then fingers. Ganun siya. Hindi yung agad-agad yung daliring gumagalaw. No, it's outward. The development of motor skills. When say motor skills yung paggalaw, pagkilos, it starts from the center moving outward. So that's what we mean by cephalocaudal versus proximodistal pattern. So development could be cephalocaudal, okay, it's from top to bottom, or proximodistal, it's from center going outward. That the cephalocaudal trend or pattern is the prenatal growth, okay, it's from conception to 5 months, okay, when the head grows more than the body. It is also the trend in which infants begin to use their upper limbs, okay, before their lower limbs. So kamay muna yung gumagalaw bago yung mga paa. Okay, head and brain physically develop faster than other body parts. Okay, that's the cephalocaudal pattern. While for the other one, the proximodistal pattern or trend, it is the prenatal growth, okay, from 5 months to birth, when the fetus grows from inside of the body outwards, the organs and then outwards. This also applies in the first months after birth, as shown in the earlier and maturation of muscular control of the trunk. Ayan, yung trunk of the arms, okay? And then followed by the hands and then the fingers. And the outward siya. Okay, when referring to motor development, the proximal distal trend refers to the development of motor skills from the center, like to the trunk, to the core, moving outward. Okay, so ganun ang pattern of development when it comes to infants and toddler. Okay, in terms of height and weight, again, we are describing the infants and toddler physically. Now we are on height and weight. It says here, newborn babies drop 5 to 10% of their body weight within a couple of weeks of birth. So at birth, okay, the newborn babies drop 5 to 10% of their body weight within a couple of weeks of birth. Bakit kaya? Palagay nyo bakit? Is it normal? Yes, Miss Santiago.
Sir?
Is it normal that newborn babies drop 5 to 10% of their body weight within a couple of weeks of birth?
Is it normal to? Yes po, sir.
Yes, but after nilang matutunan yung feeding, like it's either breastfeeding or bottle feeding, what do you observe?
Ano po, sir, nag-i-increase na po yung
Correct.
weight nila.
So after birth, there
Dahil
is this...
nakapag-adjust na po sila sa
Correct.
bagong
Correct.
environment.
The word is adjust. Correct. That is what we call the period of adjustment for the baby after birth. But after the period of adjustment, when they started to learn how to suck, kasi kapain pa nila yan, patututunan pa nila yan, they will learn how to suck, okay, the breast of the mother, of course, the nipple, okay, or anong tawag dun sa chupon? Nung bottle, kung bottle man yung ginagawa. But again, like what is always mentioned in television, in commercials, breastfeeding is always best for babies. Na totoo naman, no? And once they learned how to suck, how to swallow, and how to digest food, they grow rapidly. Biglang lumalaki. Okay? Di ba from birth, and then mapapalikan mo after 3 months, doon mo makikita ba siya na pala yun, biglang parang lumobo, no? So breastfed babies, according to studies, are typically heavier than bottle-fed babies. So in terms of weight, mas mabigat daw yung nag-breastfeed. Okay, but after 6 months, breastfeed babies usually weigh less, okay, than bottle babies. So parang rin repercussion. After 6 months naman daw, biglang may pagpayat na magaganap. They will weigh less, okay, compared to bottle fed babies. Okay, infant's length, ito naman, it's about the height. Increases by about 30% in the first 5 months. So 30% ang growth rate nila for the first 5 months. But baby's weight usually triples during the first year but slows down in the second year. Mabilis tumaki during the first year and it slows down during the second. So in general, we would say that an infant's length increases by about 30% in the first 5 months. Okay, and baby's weight usually triples during the first year but slows down in the second year of life. Low percentages are not a cause for alarm. So it's normal. Walang dapat ikatakot. It's not alarming kung bumaba yung timbang nila because it's normal. So it's part of the progress of infant. So it's a natural curve for steady development. Okay, next slide. Brain development. Ito. Newborn's brain is about 25% of its adult weight. So, ibig sabihin, pag bagong panganak, okay, kunyari tayo, kung ano man yung, since adult na tayo ngayon, 25% ng brain natin ngayon, ganun kalaking brain natin nung pinanganak tayo. It's 25% of our brain. Okay? The brain is about 75% of its adult weight on the second birthday. So, upon reaching 2 years old, okay, yung laki ng brain mo, 75% na agad. So, ganun kabilis mag-develop ang brain. Imagine from birth, which is 25%, it will develop up to 75%. And when you reach adulthood, yan na yung 100% na adult brain weight na meron tayo. Okay, the brain makes connection through the acquisition of experiences. It says here that as we gain experience, the brain, napag-aralan nyo naman siguro sa science itong neurons, diba? Everything about the human brain, that it makes connection, that the brain makes connection the more that we gain experiences. Nagko-connect ang mga neurons dyan, okay, the more that we gain experience. So if the brain is enriched, okay, with experiences, the more connections that it will make. So another, brains of the enriched animals weigh more. This is based on research. Okay, nag-research sila sa daga. And they examine the brains of the enriched animals. When I say enriched, yung environment nila is healthy. It's filled with many experiences. Yung daga daw na mas maraming experiences, with enriched experiences, weighed more. Okay? The brain, yung utak nila, mas tumimbang ng marami. So, pagpatalinuhan pa lang pinag-usapan, titimbangin ang utak, no? But we will only learn about that, syempre, pag ready ka na, no? Na ialay ang brain mo. Ganyan kay Einstein, di ba? Pagkalaki-laking utak based on science, based on books. Okay, kung nababasa nyo, yung tinimbang nilang utak ni Einstein, it's really heavy and big. At imagine naman pagkatali-tali ng tao, no? So it had thick layers, had more neuronal connections, and higher levels of neurochemical activity. So siguro may mga machines na nagagamit in order to test this one, and they would know kung gaano kabigat, gaano kalaki yung size ng isang tao. So may kinalaman pala yan. Kaya nga sinasabi nila, di ba, pag malapad daw yung noo mo, matalino ka. Meron palang basis. May pala katotohanan naman pala. No? Kasi pag malapad ang noo, automatic, malaki yung utak. So may basihan naman pala yung sinasabi nilang ganun. It's not purely, anong tawag dito? Pamahiin o yung kasabihan. It's really based on science that it's, if the bigger the brain, okay, the heavier the brain, the more chances na matalino yung tao. They gained a lot of experiences. Okay? So next, motor development. Along this aspect of motor development for infants and toddlers, okay, we talk about reflexes, gross motor skills, and fine motor skills. Okay? When we say reflexes, it's how we move, our reflexes. Okay? It's about the motor development. Gross motor skills talk about the big movements that we make, the core. It requires the core body to adjust. While fine motor skills, yung mga kamay, naigagalaw mo yung kamay, daliri, okay, in doing a task. So we will discuss one by one about reflexes, gross motor skills, and fine motor skills. So under reflexes, we have different types. Okay? Siyempre, pag baby ka pa lang, unang matututunan is the sucking reflex. So the sucking reflex is initiated when something touches the roof of an infant's mouth. Automatic, di ba? Papansin nyo kung ano naman yung mahawakan niya, yung daliri niya, isusubo niya. That's sucking reflex. Anything na mahawakan niya, okay, the baby will suck. Okay? Infants have a strong sucking reflex which helps to ensure that they can latch into bottle or the breast. So the sucking reflex is very strong in some infants and they may need to suck on a pacifier for comfort. Na yung iba, kapag walang laman yung bibig, they would cry. Kaya hindi mabsina na. If they are not sucking anything, they would cry. So they would need the pacifier to ease themselves. Okay, next is rooting reflex. So what do we mean by rooting reflex? Rooting reflex is the most evident when an infant's cheek is stroked. Ano mangyayari? The baby responds by turning his or her head in the direction of the touch and the opening their mouth for feeding. Like if you touch the face of the baby dito, kunyari ginanyan mo yung daliri mo, okay, it will turn to your side kung saan yun nararamdaman yung daliri o kung ano man yung humahawak sa mukha niya at yun yung isasak niya. That's what we mean by rooting reflex. So it will touch, the baby will touch and it will open its mouth, okay, for feeding. Next is gripping reflex. Gripping. kamay. So under this, babies will grasp anything that is placed in their palm. Kahit anong mahawakan niya, dadakmain niya, hawakan niya. Okay? The baby will grip. The strength of this grip is strong, and most babies can support their entire weight in their grip. So, what's the lesson here in terms of reflexes? Yung strength ng isang bata, okay, from baby up to moving to toddlerhood, naging iba-iba. First is sucking. Next, yung rooting reflex, yung anong dumampi sa mukha niya, mararamdaman niya, and then he will suck. Next is gripping. Yung kahit ano naman mahawakan niya at this stage, datamputin niya talaga. At hindi niya bibitawan. Kahit nakunin pa nung nanay, mahirap kunin. Okay, next is curling reflex. What is curling reflex? When the inner sole of a baby's foot is stroked, okay, the infant responds by curling his or her toes. Like, it will curl its legs, okay, or his toes. So that's what we mean by reflex. Nagagalaw na niya. When the outer sole of a baby's foot is stroked, the infant will respond by spreading out their toes. Yung toes naman niya, yung mga daliri sa paa. Okay? Ini-spread niya kapag meron siyang nararamdaman. So that's what we mean by reflex, a curling reflex. Next is startle, Moro reflex. What is this one? So in here, the infants will respond to sudden sounds. Eto na yung nakakarinig sila, no? Iba pag bigla nagugulat na sila, ayan, nakakarinig na sila ng mga sound. Pag nagulat sila, bigla silang, alam mo na nagulat sila kasi kikilos sila. Like yung kilos ng nabigla. They heard something, that's why they will move. Okay? Like for sudden sounds or movements by throwing their arms and legs out and throwing their heads back. They will move like that when they hear sounds, sudden sounds. Most infants will usually cry. Others would cry pag kunyari nagulat sila sa narinig nila. And when startled, and proceed to pull their limbs back into their bodies. Okay? Next is the gallant reflex. What is this gallant reflex? The gallant reflex is shown when an infant's middle or lower back is stroked next to the spinal cord. What will the baby do? The baby will respond by curving his or her body toward the side, which is being stroked. Ayan. So it's developmental, no? Beginning from the mouth, moving to the face, moving to the hands, and then the limbs, and then the body this time. Ganun ang development ng reflexes ng bata. Meron siyang pattern na sinusunod. Okay. Last is what we call the tonic neck reflex. In here, the tonic neck reflex is demonstrated in infants who are placed on their abdomens. Okay, whichever side the child's head is facing, the limbs on that side will straighten, while the opposite limbs will curve. So that's what we mean by tonic neck reflex. Okay, I repeat, from sucking the mouth, rooting the face, gripping the hands, the arms, curling, it includes the legs. Okay, startle, Moro reflex, it's the entire body. The gallant reflex, the spinal at the back, and tonic neck reflex. May mga kiliti nang nagaganap, no? Okay, the motor development in terms of gross skills. So in here, you will see the picture of the gross motor skill development of a child. So pag sinabi natin gross motor skills, it talks about the whole body movement. Okay? Big body movement, which involve the large core muscles of the body to perform every day. Large core of the muscle to perform every day. Ano ba itong mga gross motor skills? Example, ayan. Una,
Gagapang po.
okay, hindi mo na, before yung paggapang, ayun yung nasa ilalim. You lift the baby will learn how to lift
Ay, yung ano po, sir. Opo, yung
Okay, di ba?
yung
Nabubuhat na
ulo
niya
po.
yung ulo niya na napakabigat, no? Nabubuhat na niya this time. That's a gross motor skill bit because it requires the core muscles of the body to perform.
Opo.
Okay, next. Ayan, in pattern na siya. Alam naman natin yung sequence, no? Hanggang sa matuto siyang maglakad. Minsan, meron tayong nakikita na from lifting of the head, bigla-bigla, kaya na mag-roll over. Okay? But I repeat, generally speaking, Okay, aside from those cases, special cases in development nila ay napakabilis at napaka-advanced. Okay, madalang lang naman yun. Generally speaking, this is the sequence. You will learn how to lift your head and then chest up, use the arms for support. Ayan, yung pinang tutukod mo na yung arms mo. You roll over. Ayan, ditang sasakab na na, kaya ba't paglalat dala. Support some weight with legs. Ayan, crawling. Sit without support. Standing with support, pulling self to stand, a walk using furnitures for support, and last, okay, we have standing alone easily and then walking alone easily. So this is the motor development in terms of gross motor skill. So it's always a source of excitement for parents, di ba? For sure, niyang miglakad kayo, ano, katularin pengari, di ba? To witness dramatic changes in the infant's first year of life. Especially here in the Philippines, ang dami nating kultura na sinasama. Okay? And then, ay, yung iba pang mga magulang, nire-record yan, di ba? From crawling, okay, up to the time that the child learns how to walk. Okay? So this dramatic motor development is shown in babies unable to even lift their heads, to being able to grab things off the cabinet. Okay? To chase the ball and to walk away from parents. So this is what we mean by gross motor skills, the motor development, focusing on gross motor skills. So we're done with reflexes, we're done with gross motor skills. Let's move to another aspect